What's up, guys? I was going to replace the nib on my Lamy Safari fountain pen, and I figured I'd make a quick video kind of showing you guys how to do it in case you don't really know much about fountain pens or just are interested in doing it. I've had this Safari for over 6 years now, and I loved this pen when I first got it new. The nib wrote really well. I originally got a fine Lamy nib on it, and it wrote super smooth. There was no scratchiness whatsoever. But this was my everyday beater pen, I suppose you could say. And unfortunately, when you give a fountain pen to people who have never written with a fountain pen, they don't know how to write with it. And with a fountain pen, eventually with the nib, it kind of wears into how your writing style is. So obviously when you change up the writing style to a different person, it'll write a little differently. But for those of you who don't know, when you write with a fountain pen, you just write with the very tip of it, and you keep it at a constant angle with the nib facing upwards. Some people who don't know, they just hold the pen however they would normally hold a ballpoint pen or whatever, where the direction and the angle don't really matter, and then they start putting downward pressure on top of the nib. And obviously for most people, when the pen doesn't write properly and ink isn't coming out as much as they would like, what they do is they just naturally press down harder on the paper. So that ends up creating a very scratchy nib, which, this nib I've actually had to repair several times. Like, nibs for Lamys aren't expensive, they're like $10 a piece. But I was just lazy about it, and I just, instead of, actually replacing the nib, I went ahead, put it underneath the microscope, and started to do repairs on it, doing slight bends and doing a little bit of sanding and whatnot. If I actually get it on a piece of paper, you can actually hear it's a little scratchy now. I don't know if you can actually hear that. Well, I can hear it. It's mainly on the downstroke, like this, is when it starts scratching now. I'm not, I was ordering a bunch of, you see here I have a High-Tech C Cavalier. I was ordering a bunch of Japanese domestic market pens, and I saw the site actually had Lamy pens for around Lamy nibs for around $10.50. A few weeks ago, I actually replaced that one with another exact duplicate of the same pen, another Safari in charcoal as well with a fine nib, just because I loved the first one so much. And they're not expensive pens, they range from $25 to $30, and they write super smooth. Like, I have a Rhodia pad here. Just, it's surprising enough with a fine nib. Just, there's a very slight bit of scratchiness. You don't have any feed issues. There are no ink flow issues. They're very, very, very nice pens. I figured since I had bought the second pen, I wouldn't just get another nib in fine again. And I figured I would just get an extra fine nib. And they're really simple to remove. All you need to do is get a piece of tape. I don't have Scotch tape here, so I'm going to use some blue painter's tape. And what you literally do is you don't want to force pull it out, because what will happen is if you try and do it with your fingers, if you try grabbing the tip of the nib with your fingers and pulling it off, you may actually just damage the nib. In this case, I don't really care, because I'm going to throw the nib out anyway. It's considered damaged in my book. But if you want to switch out nibs between different fountain pens, you want to be careful with damaging them and whatnot. And you would literally just tape it over, like so. Make sure you get a nice good tape to it. I like to hold the edges of the tape, put a little bit of downward pressure, and slide out. And there you go. You see here, the nib is stuck on there, and you could just replace it with another nib. Whoops, stuck my tape. You want to get some, it's probably not the best idea to use a linty tissue on there, but that's not a big deal. I want to just clean it a little bit. You can actually remove the feed from Lamy Safaris, although it really isn't recommended, because it's a pressure fit feed, and you can actually break it. Sometimes they're difficult because they're plastic to actually get back into the body of the pen itself. So I would not recommend removing the feed on Safaris. On other fountain pens, you can, some of them you can just remove, and then you might have issues where ink will just flow out, when you hold the pen downwards. The really nice ones that have removable feeds have threads where you can just twist the nib and the feed portion here, and it just unscrews out. And to put it back in, you can use a piece of tape for this part. I don't even bother. I just gently place it over the feed. Oops. Ah! Maybe I should use the piece of tape. I'll make it seem more difficult than it really is. Alright, there we go. You gotta get the right angle onto it. It is because the nib and the feed are at a slight angle on the Safaris. Maybe I will use the piece of tape. I don't want to actually damage the tip of the nib. There we go. Just slide right on. And to test it out, I don't actually have ink in here because I only have a converter with me. So let's actually just remove the converter from my second Safari. Just try not to get ink all over the place. When I was younger, I spilled a whole bottle of Parker Blue, and that was not a fun experience to clean up. Which pen body is it? It should be the older one. And let's see. Just hold upside down. There we go. Because the finer nibs usually have a slight tendency to scratch just a little bit. Obviously, the higher quality paper you use, the less scratchiness there is. Considering this is writing dry right now, it's not terrible. Although, I kind of do want to maybe force some ink in through the feed. Come on, oops. Unfortunately, I might have dry ink in the feed itself because I haven't used this pen in a while. And like I said, because I don't recommend taking the feed out of the Safaris, they're difficult to clean, I guess you could say. And the nice thing about fountain pens, you know, a lot of people don't understand is you can always buy a used fountain pen, and generally the bodies will be in pretty good condition. The things that usually get damaged the most are the nibs themselves. And if you buy one from like an estate or, you know, eBay, an auction, whatnot, you can always just go and buy replacement parts and fix up the pen yourself, and it'll write just like new. There we go. So you can see here, these were all the fines, and you can see the extra fine. Writes really nice. The Lamys the Safaris do use a stainless steel nib, so it's kind of tough. Some people like gold nibs and whatnot. I don't mind the stainless steel nibs. I think they're a little more forgiving. They're excellent for beginners who don't know how to write with fountain pens because the chances of you damaging the actual nib are much less so. And you can see here the line is much finer. The ink flow isn't quite as good. There is a little bit of feeding issues, especially on the downstrokes. The quick up and down strokes, but I'm sure that's just a feed issue. So yeah, that's how you replace the nib. Very simple, just use a piece of tape, it slides right off. The first time I did it, I didn't use tape, and I tried actually like squeezing it on the sides and pulling it out. Not a good idea. I would not recommend it. Luckily, I didn't damage anything, but there's always a chance that you can actually just snap off the very tip of the feed itself down here. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.